against Rome like July. Husker fans were enjoying Indian summer while the players nearly had to be iced down. Nebraska struggled all day, but when the game was on the line, one play by the Blackshirts saved the day.
The Tom Osborne Show, brought to you by American Charter Federal Savings and Loan, Northwestern Bell, a U.S. West company, Miller Brewing Company. And now, here's your host, Rick Benjamin.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Tom Osborne Show for another week. I'm Rick Benjamin. Good to have you with us tonight. Coach, a great game to come away with in the victory column.
Well, it was certainly a very difficult game, Rick. I think that we've had maybe 4 or 5 games over the last 10 years that were really difficult environments to play in, and this was one of them. You know, the combination of crowd noise, grass field, and then just a lot of heat where we had not been practicing in weather much more than 65, 70 degrees made it a very, very difficult ball game.
We know every week there are certain things you want to see the ball club accomplish. Let's take a look at a tape now. We'll show you some of the things the coach wanted to get done in this week's contest.
I believe this game will probably put about as much stress on our defense as we've had all year. They have an excellent quarterback in Ellis, who is a good runner and a good thrower. They're very fine receivers, good running backs. So their skilled players have good speed. They spread you out all over the field. They run some option football, which always compounds the problem defensively. So it's going to be important that we get lined up right, that we make good adjustments, and particularly to their motion, because they hardly ever run a play in the original set they line up in. They're almost always shifting, going to a triple set or something. And, of course, as far as our offense is concerned, I think we may have to score a fair number of points in order to win the game, because their offense is very good. We're going to have to be very consistent offensively, try to eliminate penalties. We've probably had a few more penalties in recent games than we'd like to have. Do a good job taking care of the ball. We'd like to throw the ball a little bit better than we have in the last couple of ball games, and just really play a complete football game. The kicking game, of course, is always important, because that's what leads to field position. So we felt the Oregon game was the best kicking game overall we've had, and we hope to see continued improvement in that area.
Well, Coach, seems as though you knew this was going to be a tough one.
Well, I had that feeling because South Carolina really is an improving football team. In the last half against Georgia the week before, they had played very, very well, and so they were a very, very good football team. Their record is unbelievable that they're 1-4.
Hard to believe indeed after Saturday's action. We'll be right back to take a look at first quarter highlights in just a moment. On the Tom Osborne Show, Saturday's game against South Carolina, things got started quickly, didn't they?
Well, we moved the ball very well and actually had an excellent first half. And then I think the heat began to take a toll. We got the crowd in the ball game, and it got a little bit tougher. Now, this was the first ball game, Rick, where we had lost the toss. They won the toss, elected to defer, so we received. Strangely enough, though, they elected to kick the ball into the wind. We had that going for us. First play here, we give the ball to Keith Jones, and Keith is able to gain about 3 or 4 yards on an isolation play. And now a counter sweep that's really well blocked, and Keith uses his speed, gets to the outside, and gained 19 yards. Keith didn't have a lot of running room, but occasionally did get some fairly substantial gains. Here, we made a mistake on our perimeter blocking. We blocked the man we're trying to option on, and as a result, it was a little confusing for Steve. Now Micah Heibel picks up only 1, so on those 2 plays, we gained 2 yards. Now it's 3rd and 8, and really good protection here for Steve Taylor, and an excellent throw. Dana Brinson breaks the tackle, and a gain of 21 yards on the play. Here we'll see a replay of that shot. You see the excellent pass protection Steve has here, and Dana is at what we would call a second level. We have a tight end crossing shorter to hold the linebackers, and then Dana is up behind him at about 18 yards and manages to spin out of the tackle, pick up another 3, 4, 5, and so it was a well-executed play and kept the drive alive. Now we come back with a counter sweep that we ran on the second play, And in that case, we got very little, only 1 yard. Now an option, and we missed the block on the perimeter. Tom Banderas was out there, and Tom just really not able to run effectively yet. Now Steve Taylor on an option play and a gain of 7. And here South Carolina was offside. They were a little over anxious. It was 4th down and 1. And so that gave us a first down at the 15-yard line. The game, both teams had some penalties, but the penalties that we had were particularly costly. It took us out of, I would say, maybe 14 points or so, and now we are able to gain a couple of yards, but we were moving on that play. It was noisy, particularly down toward the end zones. It became very, very difficult for the players to hear the snap count, and as a result, we had a little bit of that type of thing, but really not very much. It was surprising how few penalties we had. Here's a draw play, and Keith Jones was able to find some running room for a gain of 9. Now it's 2nd and 6, and Steve Taylor ducks up, has good balance, gain of 2, and now we have a 3rd and 4, and Steve is able on the option play just to get the 4 yards needed. I think he had to measure for the first down, and we got it. So now it's 1st and goal at the 5, and they did a lot of slanting. They played an even front, and the men on our guards did a lot of looping. Now this way they looped the wrong way, and you see the result. Keith Jones goes in pretty much untouched for the touchdown on a pitch play, but they were slanting their play to the right. Now we'll take a look at that on the video rider. These interior linemen were slanting to their right. Also the tackle slanted. This man looped out. We got a good block on him, and we'll find that our right guard pulls and comes up through the hole. The fullback came up field and blocked one of the defensive backs, and then the pitch play, of course, goes to Keith Jones, and Keith was able to find the crack here and go all the way in the end zone. But the main thing here was simply that we caught South Carolina slanting to their right, and you see several good blocks. And because of the fact that they gambled as much as they did, South Carolina oftentimes came up with some real big plays, but they also gave up some big plays.
They seem to have some things closed off, though, pretty well.
Well, they did, but they, like you said, Rick, it just was kind of a guessing game as to which way they were going to go, and that was one of the difficulties. Here, on an option play now, you see Ellis keep the ball and gains 9 yards on the option. And this is one thing that makes the run and shoot that they run difficult, is that they combine the passing game with option football. So you have to try to cover the quarterback, the dive back, and the pitch back on the option, and then also you get spread all over the field. Now this play right here was the play that probably hurt us more than any other. Now Jeff Tomjack played it pretty well there, a gain of only 5 or 6 yards, but we oftentimes missed that tackle on the man in the flat, and then we had some big plays. Now there they drop a pass. It was a pretty well thrown ball. And now another drop pass, which was a little bit difficult to catch, and so South Carolina is forced to punt. And they had a good punter, and I thought John Croker punted well. We averaged 46 yards a punt. The big difference was we had some fine returns, and they did not have much at all in return yards. And here you see Dana Brinson on an excellent 24-yard return. And we'll see a replay of that. You're going to see some good blocks here, and Dana right now is returning punts about as well as anybody that we've had in a long time. See there a couple of good blocks. He now cuts inside of one man and begins to hit the wall. And of course that 24 yards of field position is really a tremendous factor in terms of being able to move the ball and to score.
Is that a called return for the right? Or does he read
that was a right return. We have basically a right return, a left return, and a middle return. So it's not that difficult, but sometimes it's hard to execute. That's a first down, and this is an excellent run by Keith Jones. You can see that he didn't have a whole lot of running room there, and did an excellent job of making 12 yards on his own. And now we'll see that they did, I think, grab his face mask just momentarily on the play here, right there. And he was able to shake loose. And so it was an excellent job of running on his part. And now we were trying to throw the ball, and we hit the second receiver, Jason Gamble, an excellent pass by Steve Taylor, gain of 14 yards. We were looking first to the tight end in the flat. He was covered. and so the second receiver was open. Now here's one of those cases where we lose 3, and that time we ran a play into the direction that they were slanting their line. And we saw the touchdown where we ran opposite the slant. And now an option play, Steve Taylor is able to duck up for a gain of about 5. And now it's 3rd and 8. And this is a big play here. Steve gets outside, and I think South Carolina was offside on the play. And of course we declined the penalty. It was a gain of 17 yards, and some good blocks out in front. The first block by our fullback, Micah Heibel, was excellent, and got him going. Now we're trying to throw a bootleg here, and trying to hit Todd Milliken on the crossing pattern. The pass was incomplete. And now a trap play, Tyrese Knox for just a gain of a couple, and they seem to do a good job on the traps. Now this is unfortunate here. We have our split end, Jason Gamble open, but we miss him. And so at this point, Dale Klein comes in and hits a 37-yard field goal. And of course, we've been very pleased with the way Dale has been playing.
Sure. So you're off to a good start at this point.
Well, it's 10-0. We really wanted to take the crowd out of the game, and we had. We'd really controlled the ball. We'd held the ball for probably 7 or 8 minutes of the first 10, and we're in good shape. And now they hand the ball off to Smith for a gain of 7. And now another option play here and a gain of 4, which gave them a first down. So you can see that they do have a fairly good option game. And now the dump out into the flat, and this time it's incomplete, intended for Sharp out there. And now it's 2nd and 10. And we're able to put good pressure on Ellis here and sack him. And now it's a 3rd down play, and good pressure again. I think that as the game went along, as we got more fatigued, our pressure on the passer certainly declined. We just weren't as able to get to him, and even though we played quite a few players, obviously they held up a little better in the heat than we did. In that case, Rod Smith maybe fielded the ball that he shouldn't have, and there were offsetting penalties on the play. They had a personal foul, and we had a clip. And the referee came over to me, and he said, now you can have the ball and a 15-yard penalty. And I pointed in the direction of South Carolina. I said, you mean we get the ball plus 15 yards? And see, there you see me pointing. And he said, yes. And so then he goes out and marches off 15 yards against us. So then I said, no, wait a minute. And I got him back over there, fortunately, because a lot of them would not come back over. This was a Big 8 official, by the way. And he reconsidered. And
whose name will remain unstated.
No. Well, no, this is reasonable, you know. But I'm just saying a lot of times they won't even come over and talk to you, and yeah. I appreciated that very much. And there were 1 or 2 out there that wouldn't talk to me as readily. So anyway, they do punt the ball over, and we get the ball here, and that's pretty much the end of the first quarter.
All right, we are going to be right back with a look at second quarter highlights. Lots of action to show you tonight. First, though, our Husker profile. First one tonight is on offensive tackle Tom Welter.
Yankton, South Dakota is the hometown of Husker right tackle Tom Welter. Tom casts a large shadow on the playing field, and he likely will in the business world. That's his major, business administration, here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He has 4 brothers and 2 sisters, and is the son of Delvin and Sally Welter of Yankton. Tom Welter, a senior in another Husker profile.
Tom Osborne Show, good to have you with us tonight. We're at the end of the first quarter now. You're up 10-0. What kind of things are you looking to do here in the second period?
Well, really just more of the same, Rick. As I said, the first half was very good, first quarter, and so on. I think we had 250 yards roughly at the half, and they had a little over 100, and we really had total dominance. But you'll see some bad things happen here in the second quarter that kept us off the scoreboard.
All right, let's take a look at those second quarter highlights right now.
We have the ball here, and on a pitch play, we lose 1 yard. And we had a penalty there where apparently we had our flanker did not get set in time, and they naturally declined the penalty since we lost a yard anyway. And now we checked out of a play that I think would have been okay, but ran a pitch play, gained 3. And now we come here on a sprint out. This is one Steve ran on earlier, a good throw. And Rod Smith makes an excellent run here. And you see Todd Milliken getting downfield here and in good position. And this was a long touchdown play of over 60 yards, I think around 70 yards, and it was called back. They called Dana Brinson for pushing off. And this was a call that it's kind of like holding. You could call something like this, I think, most every play, and yet it really was nothing that was very significant. Now, here's what happens. You'll see Dana Brinson coming out here in the flat, and we'll get a good block here. See, Dana ran out here. We got a good block from our fullback, and a fake to the eye back. Steve gets outside here. Looked like he was going to run, then he pulled up, and Rod Smith ran the hook behind him. And this man here widened, and Dana just got his hand on his back, and it wasn't really a push. It was nothing that had to do with the play. You know, sometimes if a guy holds or whatever, then it's a little different. But Steve now will hit the receiver, and you see Dana in the bottom of the screen, and this was what was called on the play. And I'm not saying it was a bad call. It was just one of those things that sometimes, I'd say probably 4 out of 5 times would not be called, but it was. And it took away a penalty and put us way back in the hole. So that was really the first of some rather disastrous things that happened, most of them, or at least a lot of them, in the second quarter, because I felt that we probably should have gone in at the half with a 27-7 lead, and instead it was a fairly tight ball game. Now we really get good pressure here. You see Munford on a blitz there, along with Danny Noonan, and they're able to get to Ellis. We did sack him for 4 times, and they lost 9 yards on that. Now Ellis fumbles and recovers it, and loses 1 yard on the play, and their pass is incomplete. The receiver looked like he could have held the ball, and they called us for defensive holding on that play, and that gave them a first down, an automatic first down. And so again, it was kind of an unfortunate thing where it seemed like penalties had a lot to do with this second quarter. Now in that case, Ellis pulls out prematurely from the center. You see here what happens, and he doesn't get a handle on the ball. A lot of times the ball bounces right back to the quarterback, but in this case the lineman knocks Ellis off, and Chris Bachman's right there to recover the fumble. So, and this is one series here coming up that really bothered me, in that this was an opportunity that we had to really not put the game away, but certainly to move out ahead substantially, and we don't get anything out of this. And they're on an option play. We do pick up 5 or 6 yards, and now Heibel gains 1, and now we've got 2 yards, or 2 plays to get a yard, and we don't get it. We run an option play here and lose 1, and so now on 4th down we're forced to punt the ball. And here John tried to ease up a little bit, John Croker, and like often happens when you kick it easy and smooth, it's like hitting a golf ball, it goes forever. And it went into the end zone, and so they get the ball out on the 20-yard line. Short gain there by Green, and now Ellis sprints out and a little dump pass in the flat for a gain of 5. So now it's a 3rd and 1, and Ellis is able to pick up the 1 yard on a sneak and get the first down. You notice that we have Neil Smith there in the ball game at times. Lawrence Pete was in the game quite frequently, and also our other defensive lineman, Tim Rother. And there's a pass out in the flat where they pick up a substantial gain of 19 yards. And so they're starting to move the ball a little bit better here, a little trap play. And they didn't get their inside running game going at all. Kevin Parsons made the tackle there. And now, again, Ellis is trying to get outside. We blitzed on that play and sacked him for a loss of 7. So that brought up a 3rd and 16, and this was really an unfortunate play. So we have, apparently, Lawrence Pete's about to make the tackle here. We missed 2 or 3 tackles. And it was a fine run here by Green, who has excellent speed. But we just tackled poorly on that play. And I would say our blocking and our tackling was not as good in this game as it has been in other games. See here, Lawrence Pete reading the screen, turning, and that's really Spockman there, I believe. And now we get some pursuit. Mark Blazek comes up. Now Mark needs to get his head across on the tackle here. He's behind. Right here he has him, and isn't able to wrap him up. Lawrence Pete takes a shot at him, and there's another missed tackle right there. And then this fellow has enough speed that he goes all the way on us. So it would have been a case where they would have had to punt, because they would have had maybe a 3 or 4 yard gain. And instead they get the touchdown.
Is this a case of where the heat was starting to take its toll here in the second
Well,
quarter?
I don't think too much at this point, maybe a little bit, but that play there certainly put the crowd and South Carolina back in the game. We've been pretty much in total control, maybe should have been up 17-0. Now all of a sudden it's 10-7, and of course that picked their spirits up. And now we get a pretty long kickoff. Terry Rogers doesn't field it, so the ball comes out to the 20-yard line. Here's a bootleg play, and we find Todd Milliken open behind everybody. And secondary was really confused. Now, Todd does a good job. You know, he probably should have been tackled at the 30-yard line, and he manages to get all the way down to the 7-yard line. And so it looked like we were going to get right back into the ball game here. And we're going to take a look here on the video writer. This was a play-action pass. The fullback comes to the right. Brinson fakes to the left. Steve Taylor opens and fakes the ball to Brinson and then bootlegs out here. Now our tight end here, Mark Diaz, ran this way, and Todd Milliken started across the middle, and he saw a big hole up the middle, and he went straight on down the field, and the I-back came this way, and I believe the secondary racked it up to the play action, and then somebody was frozen over here, and so Steve pulled up and threw the ball down here to Todd Milliken. So we'll see it here again on the replay.
Were you surprised that the pass was there as often as it was Saturday?
Well, they were really very run conscious, and so a lot of times play action seemed to give them some trouble, and they were trying to play the run with 11 people at times, and that's why it made it more difficult to run. So we threw for almost 200 yards in 19 attempts, which is very good. Now the first play here, it looks like we got something going, and then one of their secondary people comes up, and we only gained about 1 yard. Now this was another very unfortunate play. See the pitch is there.
Oh.
And it looks like Keith is going to go all the way in, just walk into the end zone, and took his eye off the ball for just a moment, and they recovered. So again, you know, there was 7 points that we came away with nothing. And so as I said, we really lost probably 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. And that was a great play there by Lee Jones on a slant. It was a trap play, and you see Lee coming into the picture here and beating the block and making the tackle in the backfield. So we were really pretty dominant up front, both offensive and defensive lines. I think in the first half had control. We were counting on our lines being better than theirs, but then in the second half, I think that began to reverse itself a little bit, just mainly because of the heat, and at least it seemed that way. Now you see a couple missed tackles, and really an excellent run. That fellow there is a great broken field runner. That was sharp, and he gained 13 yards on the play. Now we see an incomplete pass there, and a good play here by Chris Bachman. He read the screen, and if he hadn't made that play, we would have been in deep trouble. And now an excellent catch there, and Ellis was off balance under good pressure, but they did come up short, and they're forced to punt the ball away. And they had a fine punter who had good hang time. There you see Benson gets a block or two. That was a middle return there, and it was a 15-yard return. Now it's a little sprint draw here, which we don't gain much on at all. Matter of fact, we lose 2. And now we're trying to run a screen out here to the I-back, but the alternate receiver is Rod Smith. And Rod was open. Steve found him, and it's a gain of 22 yards. And now we try to go deep to Jason Gamble. We're running down short of time in the half, and it's a pretty good throw, just a yard over Jason. Jason had 1 step, but you certainly don't want to underthrow those kinds of passes. And really good job here by Steve finding Rob Schnitzler on the sideline. And Rob was really the third option on that pass, and so to get to that third individual in that short of time was pretty significant. Now counter sweep, very little gain, and we do manage to get out of bounds though and stop the clock. Now this is an option play where we could either throw the ball or run it, and Steve elects to run the ball and wisely gets out of bounds and a gain of 13 yards. Now here's a situation where we really probably should have gotten a touchdown. We had some pressure there, had to throw it away, and now on second down, Rod Smith has the ball momentarily. He had a chance to make a great play. It was broken up. Now this was the play that we should have scored on. We had a mistake up front in our protection, and Steve got a little bit of pressure from the backside here, and it threw him off. And you see there, Jason Gamble was all by himself in the end zone. But somebody had a hold of Steve's leg when he was trying to throw the ball, so we had to settle for the field goal, which of course is better than nothing. But we go in now 13-7 at the end of the half.
All right. Well, that takes us through the first half of action. When we come back, Al Zobel will have a look at some of the folks who play a key role in Nebraska football, although you may not know who they are. Stay with us.
There may be nothing more important to a coach than game film. Without it, preparation becomes a guessing game. With it, exact game plans can be drawn detailing tendencies, strengths, and weaknesses. At Nebraska, the game film operation is a three-step process. The first step involves the filming of the game from the press box. More than 10,000 feet of film passes through each camera per game. After that, the film is brought across campus here to Nebraska Hall for processing.
Saturday night gets to be kind of hectic. After the game is over and people are going out to have a party. On home games, I'm here at halftime getting the equipment turned on and warmed up. And two of the fellows from the crew of the stadium will come over with the first half film. And we'll start that. And by the time we get done processing that film and started to print it, they'll have the end of the game over. So it's a continuous process. I appreciate that we're supporting one of the top programs in the country. I'm proud of the product that we give them. I sit here and I duplicate films from all over the country, and I feel that our footage is just as good, if not better, than the majority of films from other schools.
For the Tom Osborne Show, I'm Al Zobel.
Show, ready to take a look at third quarter activity. It was kind of a slow-moving quarter in many ways.
Well, the third quarter was. We seemed to have bad field position much of the time. A couple of penalties put us there. And then, of course, they were moving the ball and holding it a little bit more. First half, we had the ball most of the time. Here's the reverse. It was pretty well set up. And Charles Fryer did a good job. Even though he didn't make the tackle, he certainly kept the runner from making a larger gain than it was. That was Bethea, and he gained 17 yards on the play. Here's Green again, and we just don't tackle him very well. And part of that's Green's ability. You know, he's pretty fast and a hard man to bring down. So now it's 2nd and 3, and this time they run an option to the short side of the field, and we play it pretty well. Neil Smith is in on the play, and no gain on that. But this was a 3rd and 2 situation. And Ellis is able to complete a pass for 8 yards on that play. Now it's a little pitch play here, and pretty good pursuit, and a gain of only 2 yards. Now, South Carolina was penalized for holding. This was one penalty that did hurt them some, and but on the average, they did not have the same number of penalties, and they were not as costly. Now, here's a fine throw. Ellis completing a pass there for 14 yards. Now Green picks up a couple, and so now it's a 3rd down and 2, and they throw a little flat pass out here, which is a fairly easy throw and catch, and we play it about as well as we can play it. I think they only picked up about 3 or 4 yards, but they did get the first down. And now a pitch play here to Green, and we get fairly good pursuit, but you know, we're kind of back on our heels trying to play the pass, and as a result, when they did run the ball, we didn't play the run with the same type of tenacity that we often do. Now we get some penetration from our nose guard. That knocked one of their linemen back, and Ellis was tripped up. And so now they have a 3rd down play, and really good pressure here from Noonan, and a loss there of about 11 yards. And so that put them in a 4th down situation with a long way to go. They come in, they do kick the field goal, a 38-yard field goal by Hagler. So and neither team really moved the ball substantially through the rest of the quarter.
All right, that takes a look at our third quarter highlights, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Vaughn Shepard is another young man from Minnesota who came to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. The Husker wingback is a junior from St. Paul who is majoring in English at UNL. Vaughn has 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and he's the son of Mary and Buford Shepard. Vaughn Shepard in another Husker profile.
The Tom Osborne Show, ready to take a look at fourth quarter highlights. You're only up by 3 points at this time, and this was the period in the third quarter when Steve Taylor was injured. Tell us about that.
Well, he had some kind of a hand injury, and of course everybody's very concerned, and it turned out it was a dislocated finger when they just slipped it back into place and taped it up. And of course he's got a fairly sore finger right now, but it's a lot better than a break, because if you have a break then you might have to cast it, and then with a quarterback that becomes pretty critical.
Absolutely. Now, at this point, Taylor is the only healthy starter, at least fellas that you started the season with in your backfield.
Well, that's true. We've lost Vaughn Shepard for maybe most of the season. Ken Kalen was out. Doug DuBose was lost for the season. So we've been really hard hit by injuries, particularly at the offensive spots and the backfield.
But you persevered. The Huskers won. Let's take a look at how that happened in the fourth quarter on Saturday. South Carolina in possession here.
Well, here they're at the South Carolina 36-yard line, and Ellis is able to hit a little dump pass. Now that is significant there because that's the same pattern that was later intercepted by Brian Siebler. You know, they had gone to that in several cases where when we had blitzed, they had what we would call a hot receiver, where they would just cross the receiver real shallow, and most times we were a little bit too far off of him, but at the end of the ball game, Brian had seen it enough times that he was able to anticipate it and step up in front. There, they hit Sharp again for a gain of 14. Sharp is really a good player. I was very impressed with him, as really all of their receivers were very good. Now, South Carolina gets a delay of game penalty. The 25-second clock ran out, and so at this point, I felt that we were really beginning to show fatigue. You know, we weren't really hustling to the ball. Everybody was playing their position pretty well, but when it came to going sideline to sideline and running people down and getting 11 people around the football, we just weren't doing it as well. And really not a whole lot you could do about it, because you know, when you're playing in a game where all of a sudden it's 25, 30 degrees hotter than what you've been in for a long time, you just have to do the best you can and substitute as much as you can. Here's a fine reception. I believe this was maybe the only catch that this particular receiver made during the day. They sprinted one way and threw back on the hook, and that was a fairly substantial gain. That was a gain of 17 yards to Bethea. And they had a number of players that could run, you know, skilled players that were really exceptional players. And here we don't do a very good job of tackling White. He broke one tackle and gained 14 yards. And this is not characteristic of our defense. You know, we normally don't have people running over us, and they began to run at us here some. And Green picks up 4 yards there. Now you see Sharp here wanting to throw the ball, but he puts the ball away and gains 5. And everybody's backing up trying to play the pass. We covered the pass, but didn't cover the ball carrier. Now you see again a play that I don't think is very typical. We just didn't do a good job of tackling there, and Green is able to pick up about 2 yards and get the touchdown. And we'll see it again here from the end zone. And it's a simple pitch play. And of course, by now the crowd was very much into the ball game. We get some penetration there from Noonan, and yet you see that he's able to get up over the top and kind of roll into the end zone. And it was a long time coming on the signal. I didn't know what they had decided to call, but finally they did signal touchdown for South Carolina. And so at this point, they go ahead after the PAT 17-13. And you could certainly sense the emotion and the momentum having shifted to South Carolina.
This is the first time the Huskers have been behind since Florida State.
Well, and it's not a good feeling either, particularly when you're playing away from home and it's in the fourth quarter. Now we dropped the kickoff momentarily, but Brinson still does a good job of getting out to the 24-yard line. I think if he had not dropped the ball, though, he might have gotten a little bit further. Now we have an option play here, and we pitch the ball out. Keith Jones is able to get upfield in a gain of 6. And now we're 2nd and 4th, 30, and Terry Rogers in the ballgame now at I-back, and a good run here, gain of 8, and it was a well-blocked play around the left side. Now Heibel on a trap play for 5. Now Micah was hurt early in the ballgame and played the whole game on a sprained ankle. Now a big play here, Dana Brinson on a counter sweep, and this again was one of those plays where they were gambling a little bit. They were blitzing from the left end, from their left end spot, which caused their secondary to be over in that direction. And we happened to hit them on a counter play coming back to the left. And it was an outstanding play. Here you see a slow motion replay. And we got some fine blocks out front by our right guard, right tackle. And then Dana went all the way untouched.
Once he got through the line, there was nobody to give him a run.
Well, Keith Jones and Dana Brinson probably aren't going to get caught, you know, if they have an even break. Now here's a video replay. We blocked down with our tight end, down with our left tackle, center blocked back, and the guard blocked back. Now our right guard pulled, and he kicked out the defensive end. The right tackle pulled up through the hole and blocked this cornerback. And we had play action this way with the eye back and a counter step here, and Dana came right back through here. Now this man here was blitzing, and that caused their secondary to be over here because they were having to cover these people. And as a result, when Dana hit the crack, it was all the way. You see the blocks here. And again, in order to stop us, they felt they had to do quite a bit of gambling on defense, and sometimes you give up the big play. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately, we got enough of them, but also unfortunately, we didn't have enough to make it an easy ball game.
Not hardly, I guess, as they would say down south.
Here's the ensuing kickoff, and we were kicking into the wind here. There was a reasonable wind from the north, and we don't have great coverage on the kickoff. And see there a guy punching back, and probably should get penalized in that case. And now we didn't react up quickly enough, and Sharp was able to pick up very close to the first down on the ensuing play. That was an 11-yard gain, and now Ellis is going back again. Same pattern out to this other side. We missed the first tackle. And we're really not going to cover that man. We're going to cover people downfield, and we're going to break up on him. And unfortunately, in breaking up on him, we missed him a lot of times because he's a good runner. And but you just can't cover every receiver all the time, and you have to rely on reaction. Now Green picks up 4 yards on that play. Now Ellis throws the ball, and one official marked it good, and one said out of bounds, fortunately, because he did come down with both feet out of bounds. And now a throwback on the hook, and this was ruled complete.
Looked like it was on the first hop there.
Yeah, and that was one that we're not too happy about. That was a gain of 12 yards on that play. And now Green picks up 1 yard. Munford steps up and makes the tackle. 2nd and 9 now at the 29. And Ellis hits the ball out in the flat here. And a good tackle on that occasion there by Brian Washington came up in a gain of only 4 yards on that play. Now it's the same play where they hit the hot receiver. We were on a blitz, and they read it. The man crossed, and they dumped it. But again, we're going to see that same pass here in a little bit where it doesn't work out quite so well for him. Green there picks up a couple of yards, and now Ellis throws a little slant pass. And again, we were coming with pressure, and he did a good job getting rid of it, and a gain of 6. And now it's 3rd and 1, and the thing that was a little different down here was that they were picking up their first downs, and we missed 1 or 2 where we had short yardage situation. And now it's 1st and goal at the 7, and we just really don't play this one very well. We overran it. A couple guys slipped trying to come back on the ball carrier. And so they score and go ahead 24-20. And now we're down to where time is definitely a factor.
Yeah.
We don't have a whole lot of time left in the game. I think about 4 minutes or something like that.
Seems as though Ellis is very poised for a freshman quarterback.
Well, he's like Steve Taylor. He's a second-year player. See, a lot of times people hear the word freshman. There's a lot of programs anymore. Now, here's a pattern. This was really unfortunate. They call that a forward pass, see? And we bring that ball out to the 42-yard line, and all it has to do is be lateral. And in this case, they rule it forward pass. It's very close, judgment call. And so instead of being out at the 42, we're back at the 4. And the tough thing to handle here was that just about every play that was a big play for us was penalized, you know, particularly late in the ball game. And so it was very, very frustrating. And that was a fine run by Terry Rogers, incidentally. It was a throwback. We were trying to get a big play, and it was supposed to come up the left sideline, but he couldn't make it up the sideline, so he cut back and went out the 42-yard line. Now, Steve was trying to appeal for help from the official on the crowd noise because nobody could hear him, and the official wouldn't give it to him. And so he had to go ahead with the play, and we did complete that pass. We completed one more, and then we were forced to punt here. And this was a hard decision because it was 4th and about 10, and there was only a little over about 3 minutes left to go in the game. And they were moving the ball, and yet we felt like if we didn't make that 4th down, the game was over at that point. Now here's a play where Broderick Thomas throws the player down by the shoulder pad, and he called face mask. And I happened to be standing right there, you know, within 5 yards of it, and Broderick told him, and I told him, but that didn't make any difference. A fine tackle here by Tony Holloway on the option play. Now 2nd and 6, because you see with that penalty, we had a 5-yard loss, but we really came up with a big play here. Broderick Thomas hit the receiver just after he caught the ball. He didn't get the ball put away, and we recover the fumble. Now Steve Taylor probably could have thrown that ball, but elected to go ahead and run it, and gains 9 yards on the option play. And so we're down pretty deep. Now another option, and this time we pick up 1st down, a gain of 3. So we're at the 11-yard line. We're getting the power set, run option action here, and got Milliken behind the defense, and it's a touchdown. And so we scored very quickly here, and of course that turnover really helped us. Now if we'd been able to make him punt, we might have been able to go 65, 70 yards, but only having to go 25 or 30 was a lot easier for us, certainly.
Milliken's really come on. He's made some big catches, hasn't he?
Well, he's a big player. Now we'll look at it on the video rider. This time the Todd released inside, and sometimes an inside release is very helpful because when you do that, the secondary thinks you're blocking. And so these people came up. These guys here were blocking. We faked into the line with the fullback and the I-back. The wingback came around as though we were going to run the option, and then he blocks. Steve reversed, faked to the I-back, took a couple steps, and then dropped back. And we had Milliken open, and this tight end over here was crossing as the second receiver. So we'll look at it again here and see what happens here. But you can see the play action where we're faking into the line. Now it looks a little bit like an option, and then Milliken was open in the end zone.
And that proved to be the winning touchdown.
Yeah, but it isn't all over yet. So we're ahead 27-24 at this point. Now, on the ensuing kickoff, you know, this was probably the most disturbing part of the kicking game because we really had to cover here, and they get outside and they get to the 40-yard line, or 40, 45, and now we got a face mask call there. And again, that was one that nobody could quite believe. We didn't see anybody grab the face mask, couldn't see it on the film, and nobody that was involved in the tackle, but that put the ball in at our 39-yard line instead of the 45-yard line. There's about a minute and 20 seconds or so to go here, and now they throw the ball out in the flat again. Pretty well played, a gain of 5, but that stops the clock with a minute and 12 seconds to go. But they're already down close to field goal range at this point. Now they put that man in motion, and it was really hard to get a pass rush now because we were really tired, and good coverage at this point. They just had to throw that ball away. So now it's a 3rd and 5, and we're coming with pressure here, and it was a good catch and an excellent throw. You know, we had no underneath coverage because our linebackers had blitzed at the 1st down at the 19, and so we're coming after him here pretty steadily. And this is the big play here where we broke up the pass, could have intercepted that one, and now we have a play where they try to throw back to the hot receiver, and Siebler steps in front and very intelligently wraps up the ball and then doesn't go out of bounds. Again, we got a clip on that play, which put us back about the 10-yard line, but they couldn't take the ball away from us. And so there you see that we are down deep. And we'll take a look at it now, and you'll see the receiver come in motion here, go downfield. This man went downfield. And this number 6 came out and then crossed right in here, and Brian Siebler stepped in front and picked the ball off. Ellis rolled this way and then tried to throw back, and they had been hitting that short man. You see, we had the linebacker stepping up, blitzing. They read blitz, and you see Siebler picking the pass off. And it was a very intelligent play by Brian, and just one of those things that sometimes you have to do to win a ball game. Now, this is the third down play. We're just trying to buy time here. We told Steve to run the ball, take as much time as he could, and that got it down under 25 seconds. They were out of timeouts, and of course time expired.
Proving once again that defense wins ball games.
Well, it takes both, Rick, and kicking too, and I guess the kicking game was really a big factor. We had some big plays in that area, so overall we played reasonably well, but there's a lot of things we need to improve.
And we'll talk about those improvements when we come back. First, let's meet Husker defensive tackle Lee Jones.
It's a safe bet that football has been the subject of a lot of conversation around Bernita Jones's supper table because she has 2 outstanding sons on the Husker team. This is Lee Jones, right tackle, and the older brother of I-back Keith Jones. Lee has 4 sisters and 2 brothers, and he's a speech communications major at UNL. Lee Jones, another Husker profile.
Coach, how important was Saturday's game to the club's development this year?
Well, I think it was an excellent ball game from the standpoint of encountering a little adversity and overcoming it, and coming from behind to win, and those kinds of things, I think, do a lot for your team in terms of confidence and poise. So it was a big win, and certainly a difficult situation to play in.
All right, let's take a look at next week's opponent. Back at home, Oklahoma State comes into Memorial Stadium.
Well, they've got a freshman quarterback that played against Illinois State, a young man named Mike Gundy, who replaced Williams, who's a great player, and they're very much like South Carolina in that they have a number of great skilled athletes, fine receivers, good throwers, and good runners. This is a freshman I-back named Barry Sanders who was running with the football. So they're going to be a very dangerous football team.
And I know you'll be ready for them this coming Saturday night. That'll be it for the Tom Osborne Show for another week. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next week after the